What's up everyone, Adrian here, and in this video I want to talk about how to find style and build one for yourself. Now this video stems from, in a way, a self-reflection of just some of the things that I've done earlier this year. Now I'm at this point in my life where it's December, at the time of this video, it is December, I'm done with traveling, and here I am balancing both my day job as well as my creative passion. And between editing my photos as well as some of the videos I took while in Taiwan, just as well as some earlier projects throughout the year, I come to see for myself like how far I've come not only as a creative but like as an editor, and I find that there's a lot of success in solo traveling and also just thinking things out for myself and just saying what it is that helped me grow along the way. Granted, there were a lot of things that helped me grow along the way, and some of the tools and resources that I will share within this video have persisted with me very early on within my photography career and even to now, and I would expect much later on in my photography career as well too. So this is all to say that style to me is something that you don't necessarily find overnight. And it's something that you don't develop rather quickly. Rather, I think it's something that you have to develop with enough time, nurture, and care. And not only is a progression of who you are as a person, but a evolution of just like what it is that you can go ahead and really band together and make something that's really unique and pertinent to you. With all those big fancy words out of the way, what I want to do with this video is just talk about some of the ways that I use some of these resources on hand and how they help influence my work. But more importantly, I want you to take away like some of the more concepts as well as the more like the structure associated with like how I use some of these things, so that way you can go ahead and begin to find style for yourself and continue to build onto something if you already have a sense of style. Now this isn't to say that like I have found my style. I often kind of question myself at times, like, is this really my style or is it what I like to do? Nonetheless, like, I'm going to throw up a couple pictures right now, and as you can see, there are multiple different subjects and things that I love shooting for, and I'm totally okay with that, because what I find for me and what I define as my style is not just simply like a way that I edit a color or like the way that I edit a photo or just how I perceive something. Rather, it's a reflection of all my accumulated interests poured out onto this image that I'm conveying to a larger audience. So with all this in mind, I want to go ahead and hop right into some of the mediums that I use for myself. And by all means, if there is something along the way that you really like or are interested in about or have questions about, definitely ask in the comments below, and I'm happy to share them more in detail. And definitely pick yourself up some these, I'd say, recommendations, because by all means, like, they are pretty fire for what they are. And as you can see, like, and later on, they do persist throughout my work. Most of my work can be found on my website. Additionally, you can find my work on my Instagram handles, which I will also link down in the description below. But with that in mind, let's go ahead and get right on into it. Now, there are three, I'd say, mediums that I go ahead and collect my inspiration from. Now, in addition to YouTube as well as Instagram and following different photographers as well as YouTubers and in a way drawing inspiration from like their artistic style, I find that outside of those like digital spaces, I find that I use mainly books, light novels, mangas, and regular novels too. Additionally, the other thing I use are going to be TV shows as well as movies. And lastly, I use music in a couple different forms, whether it be like CDs, vinyls. Spotify is a big one for me. I love being able to select different songs like at my choosing. Premium is definitely worth it. That's all I got to say. But with that in mind, let's go ahead and hop right into the first medium. Now, one of my favorite ongoing series, or I mean, not one of my favorite series that has ended, but I have a lot of their different adaptations about, is going to be Your Name. But particularly, I like using mangas a lot whenever I like shooting for compositions. Reason being is because, and if you're not familiar with how a manga is set up, it's usually read from right to left. And within a finite amount of space, you have different panels within that page. And each panel depicts either, say, a scenario or a person, a thing, or an expression. And what I like about that too is that with that finite amount of space, the mangaka or the author of it, or the artist, better put, has a very finite timeline of like what it is that they need to convey to get the message across, and I kind of use that as a mental exercise whenever I'm out shooting in the field. So for example, if I'm going to be going out and shooting for street photos, like what I did in Datong District in Taipei, Taiwan earlier this year, I went ahead and not only shot subjects that are on scooters as well as just pedestrians walking, but I also took pictures of the scenery itself too. And what I find is that using that scenery or that B-roll in a way, like as a still, is a really good mental exercise, and also just like practical exercise to see like what perspective that I can go ahead and collect for myself. I feel like having a picture of a person or a thing is not always going to be the case. Rather, and you'll see this later on too as I explain this deeper into the video, is when it comes to B-roll shots in a motion picture, whether it be like a movie or a TV show, is that they'll show like a 5-second clip of like, say, a train passing by, nature scene, city scene. That way it helps set the context and foundation of like where the story is being taken place. So yes, that's how I use mangas, and specifically the paneling within the manga, to go ahead and like find new compositions or just things to focus on whenever I'm out there in the field. To kind of build off of manga in a way, I use light novels too. So this is a series that I picked up recently and I've been really enjoying a lot, because a lot of the characters in this series are really funny, and also just like a little low-key tragic, but at the same time it adds to the humor of it. But yes, I like this for a couple reasons. Not only is the story really good, but the illustrations in of themselves. Now if you're not familiar with the light novel, think of it like not necessarily like a manga. I'd say shorter than a regular novel, but at the same time, what they include, at least within the first beginning pages of the book itself, are some illustrations of some characters or scenes that are going to be depicted later on through the book itself. Additionally, as you're reading through the book too, there's certain scenes that are highlighted through a one-page, say, image of what's being depicted. So I kind of like to use this in a couple different ways. One, as a mental exercise and seeing what it is that I can go ahead and draw forth from like this mental picture in my mind of like what I'm reading about. And when I need more clarity or like a new composition or even a portrait of something, I like looking through some of the images maybe beforehand before I start reading it. Low-key spoilers for myself, to help me get a sense of like what it is that the artist kind of like focuses on when it comes to, say, expressing something of a particular surprise or expression of a character. So a lot less paneling and visual representation within the book itself. Nonetheless, a really good mental exercise to get a sense of like what it is going on. So that is that when it comes to light novels. Additionally, when it comes to books, there's a couple other things that I love using when it comes to books. I like using novels themselves where they don't have any illustrations whatsoever. This one in particular, I have used this book by Sayaka Murata. It's called Convenience Store Woman, and a couple different facets. So there's no illustrations, so really it's like a mental challenge and practical exercise of seeing what scene is being played out before me through just reading the book in of itself. Additionally, what I like about some of the books too is that I kind of go off of color when I'm editing something. So actually the color blue over here, I've actually edited for this color in a couple of my different night shots, particularly when it came to taking photos of different 7-Elevens throughout Japan when I went last year. So that was really cool in of itself. So that would be like one aspect how I would use the book to my creative advantage in a way. Additionally, I kind of think about what are some of the concepts and themes going on within this book that I can go ahead and express on like a digital medium. What I mean by that is when I think of like a convenience store woman, like I went to like a really good example, and I'll throw up a couple images on screen now too. I think of my time in Thailand when I went with my parents and traveled there for a week, and it was absolutely beautiful for what it is. I went to a floating market, which is I think on the outskirts of Bangkok, about like an hour or so. But what I absolutely loved about it was there were, for those of you who haven't been to a floating market, let me help illustrate the picture. It's as what it sounds like. You're on a boat, or you're actually on, say, along this channel where there are boats just passing by and there's people selling goods, whether it be like, say, souvenirs or like food items. And what I did with this project in particular was I read Convenience Store Woman before heading to Thailand. And one of the things that I focused on while I was in the floating market was taking pictures of some of the locals that were just selling their goods on the floating boats themselves. And the reason I did that is because part of it was derived from the idea that convenience store, like floating markets, were like convenience stores before like 7-Elevens were a thing. And I was like, you know what, there's an idea that I can just go ahead and abstractly like build off of, and it worked. So with that in mind, I was able to take some really cool photos of just like what is documenting daily life in those kind of floating markets, that I was able to portray in some of my imagery. So I thought that was really cool for what it is. But yes, when it comes to novels themselves, I like to just use this as a mental image or mental like walkthrough of like what's going on, and then whatever passages that stick out to me, they kind of just stick out to me. Additionally, book covers or how the book is portrayed, I'll go ahead and take certain color schemes and apply them to my work. Continuing on with books. Now, I'm going to expand this conversation into digital mediums as well. But one book, and particularly an artist that, or author that I've really liked over the years, has been Haruki Murakami, and I bring up Men Without Women. So in one of the short stories within this collection of short stories, they've actually adapted it into a movie called Drive My Car, which I have over here. So I kind of bring this up in a couple different ways. Kind of building off my last point when it comes to the novels, I go ahead and just use the lack of visual imagery to use it as a mental exercise and see like what passages just stick out to me, or just like what other concepts and themes or even tropes that I can go ahead and apply within my own work. Particularly, I like using shooting for like slice of life kind of moments, or just like really daily life things. So there's times where like, hey, I might go out and shoot some nature, I might go out and shoot some street photography, but there's times where I'm just like, this is a person just like cleaning something on the side of the road, which is like totally fine by me because like there's other things going on within the scene that I feel like are really interesting to go ahead and capture. But I bring this up too because when it comes to adaptations, I love using, say, TV shows, animes, or even movies that have been adapted from previous works, and just study them too. So Drive My Car has been something that I love this movie. It is a very long movie for it being 3 hours, but it's definitely worth it. When it comes to live adaptations of a book or something like that, what I tend to find is that I like using, in a way, the B-roll scenes, like what I talked about earlier, to help me get an understanding of like how to build a story. So it can be not only like, say, a 5-second clip that I use for, say, reels, but it could be like a single still of a certain action or thing that help me portray like what it is going on within the scene and add context to like the rest of, say, a carousel post within Instagram. The other things that I really love using when it comes to now I'm blanking on it. When it comes to movies, is what's the color like? So color is a really big part of my work, and I feel like I can't really sit still when it comes to just editing for one type of color. I like to use multiple different colors depending on what it is that I'm editing for, or like I'm in the mood for at the time. And what I tend to find is that like I really like, for sometimes when it comes to like shooting daily slice of life daily scenes, is using desaturated colors to make like a moodier kind of shot, I'd say. Otherwise, there are other movies that I've used to help me portray something entirely different. Some movies that I've watched recently, but also like watched way back in the day that I feel like still has a presence within my work, are going to be some like animated movies and even like other live action movies. So some that I can just name off the top of my head are going to be like John Wick chapters 1 through 4. I really like that series for a couple different reasons. Gotta love Keanu Reeves and those action sequences, but I find that the colorization and the style that's used within the John Wick series is just so vibrant and punchy that I can't help myself but shoot for that kind of look too, because I think it's absolutely cool and sick. The other things too that I find that kind of play off that neon kind of look is like Blade, or even Blade Runner, like the old school ones. Blade Runner 2049 is still pretty good for what it is. I tend to use that more for like the colorization aspect of it, but kind of going back to the earlier works, when it comes to those really cool Harrison Ford movies or the Wesley Snipes ones, was the use of graininess and texture and kind of imperfection. I kind of go for that now nowadays instead of more of that like clean, polished kind of look, because I just really like the aesthetic associated with it. This is all to say that I kind of take a blend of like both worlds from like old school movies and like more recent movies. Colorization has been a really big part of like my work, but also like going for the graininess and sometimes like the rugged or imperfected look has just been a focus for my work as of late, and just something that I really like to not only shoot for but just edit for in general too. But outside of the realm of live action, I'd say animated works has been a very big part in how I also perceive things and also just shoot for things too. And I bring this up in a couple of different contexts. Some animated works, like Your Name, for example, I have the concept book, I have the novel, I have as well as the manga, but I love watching that movie, and I've probably watched that movie for like over 10 times now with a couple of different friend groups. It's an absolute joy to watch. But what I love about that movie is just like using the theme of like in contrast between city life as well as countryside life, and also just seeing how Shinkai depicts like this is the scene at hand, and also these are just like how the expressions and interactions between characters are portrayed too. So I'll even take away especially when I'm going to the countryside, like I love going for some of those like Shinkai-esque themes where it's just like a wide open, punchy, vibrant landscape, and I'll use that within my work too. I find that I've used that, I've referenced some of that stuff within my work when it came to going to the Philippines. I've enjoyed my time in Manila. However, there are times outside of the capital city of Manila that I love shooting for the countryside, because I find it so much more simpler, so much more slow paced, but also like in a way a different kind of beauty for what it is, and I feel like that's something that's definitely worth capturing. But in addition to Your Name, there's other animated works too, like Akira, something that I can name off the top of my head that I directly draw influence from as well, particularly for their night scenes. Well, most of the movie is shot at night, but there's just so much different color that I use that's kind of different from the night shots that you find within a live action work itself, like a John Wick, that I shoot for, and some of them I've in a way shot for in some of my other night photos when I came to, while I was traveling around Japan as well. A couple other things that I find when it comes to like a digital media is TV shows have been a big part of my influence as well. So in addition to like some of these movies and directors that I talked about, I find that within the recent years, something that I always kind of persist and go back to and reference a lot is going to be Cyberpunk Edgerunners in particular. I haven't played the game myself and kind of want to at some point, but really when it came to Cyberpunk Edgerunners, I find that I really love the nighttime scenes, and also just like how David and Lucy, those two main characters, like interact with each other. So I kind of look for themes of like couples at night when it comes to like street photography. Also, I kind of look for those kinds of colors when it comes to like the really vibrant, punchy neon colors, or even like the oranges or even the blues within my work while I'm out there in the field. So I absolutely love it, and I'll even throw up a couple examples along the way too. One example that I did earlier this year was with my homie Brian. We took his Toyota 86 out to this one photo spot in Santa Clara, and because we're both really into cyberpunk, I've decided to like edit his car in such a way that kind of mimics some of the colorization that I would find or draw inspiration from, whether it be like in these nighttime scenes for Cyberpunk Edgerunners or even like for John Wick itself, and a couple of the other like cool neon movies I've aforementioned too. But yeah, when it comes to those kinds of digital mediums, I find that TV shows and movies have just been a really big part of my work. Granted, I can't name every kind of movie or TV show there is that I draw inspiration from, but there are definitely a lot out there that I tend to consume, but also really surround myself by to reference. I do want to take a quick step away from the music portion of it, because I want to bring up the concept of surrounding yourself by the things that you love to create, that surrounding yourself by the things that you love and just using that as a way to create. I find that as an artist or a creative photographer, however you want to identify yourself, but as for me, what I tend to do is that I love collecting things that I love. Anime, books, works by my favorite authors, directors, artists, and then just using that as a point of reference, because now I feel like not only do I have this bubble and space for me to be creative, but if I need some inspiration, then I can go ahead and directly draw from that, instead of just going through Instagram and just like mindlessly doom scrolling through like different posts in hopes for something, which I feel like even if I surround myself by some of the things that I love, like it's really up to me as a person to go ahead and create it for myself. Now that I got that point out of the way, I will build on that later on, but I kind of want to dive a little bit more into the music aspect of it before getting into the practical application of some of the things I've talked about as a whole. When it comes to music, that is a very big part of my creative process too. So one example I can directly reference is going to be the Stoney album by Post Malone. If you aren't familiar with it, here it is. Now, the thing is, I have the deluxe version, but something that I did earlier this year that I am very much proud to have accomplished along with my homie Oliver, shout out to that guy, is shooting for the Post Malone Stoney album cover, which is this right over here. So I'll throw it up on screen too, and this is our rendition of it. But it was something that I felt like helped not only me, but Oliver too, and just working together in tandem to just create something really cool and dope was special, because it just allowed us to bond even further upon it, but at the same time like figure out ways to solve like this problem of like how do we accomplish something. Reverse engineering is something that I'm going to be talking about a little bit later on, but I do want to introduce it now because when it comes to finding style, I feel like it's in a way natural as a beginner, or even now that I find myself at times is like I'll look into a piece of work or art and I'll think to myself like, how do I go ahead and create that? So I'll even use images as references to go ahead and create that as my outcome, and then through the process of like working around with the sliders within Lightroom, I find that for myself that the process of like figuring out the whys and the hows and working in tandem with those two kinds of questions has helped me led to building something that I am proud of and created, and thus be able to share like, hey, this is my Oliver Mine's rendition of the Stoney album cover. So yes, reverse engineering, it's a struggle. At the same time, it's very rewarding once you get to figure out how to use your Lightroom sliders and like the whys behind of doing certain actions. Continuing on with music, like I mentioned, Spotify Premium, that's something that I pay for and I absolutely love using. And I'll use Spotify Premium in a couple of different ways. So I love listening to lo-fi a lot. So much so that one lo-fi artist that I've just been listening to, like ever since I found out about him, his name's Saeed. Lo-fi to me is just a way to kind of relax while I'm editing, but at the same time like draw inspiration from while I'm out there in the field. So earlier this year I made a reel regarding this song called A Saint by Burbank, and in it I was in South Korea at the time, and it was during a rainy, like a thunderstorm essentially, and part of it included like, hey, using some of the scenes from these thumbnails or album covers, and then just saying how I can create that for myself based on like the feeling that I've felt through some of these songs that I've listened to. And the beauty about lo-fi in a way, which I kind of find a little bit confusing at times, not gonna lie, is seeing there's this picture of an album cover that like is not really, I'd say, like relative to like what I'm listening to, and I'll throw up a couple examples, but at the same time like because of like I would say a disconnect between like what the image is portraying and like what I'm feeling through this music, it's allowed me to create some of my best work. So I will directly reference another artist, Milkoi. I've listened to their stuff for quite a while now too, and what I love about their music is that they also have this album cover which is like out of focus for some of their singles, and I've directly used that as a way to collect out of focus shots while I was out in Taiwan. So that was really cool because like I felt like it allowed me to gain a different perspective on something that I feel like I've seen throughout social media as well, just like different travel guides of just Taipei 101 at night, but like in focus. Now I figured like why not just go ahead and be creative and not only get a focus shot but an out of focus shot. It just reminds me of, and I'll show a couple of my examples too, in a way it just reminds me of like a dream that I don't want to wake up from, and I just want to keep on going forever, but at some point I got to open my eyes and face reality. So yes, music has been a big influence on me, in addition to just using music as well as the thumbnails as well as pictures. There's a couple other things that I want to notably mention this time here. 90s Neon Soul is a YouTube channel that I've used quite a bit when it comes to my editing sessions. When I'm editing for like hours on end, I'll just go ahead and throw on that YouTube channel as well as just a playlist. They have absolutely great music, and what I love about their stuff is that they have multiple pictures and thumbnails of like ladies just around different cities or prefectures within Japan itself, and they've edited their thumbnails in such a way, or used thumbnails in such a way where it's like a low contrast filmy grainy look, something that you would see like very pre-2000s. And what I love about that is that it's the look that I'm going for, and that I've also just used as an end goal to reverse engineer and create something for myself. So I'll throw up a couple of my examples here as well too, of different couples as well as just scenarios that I've seen throughout Taiwan. In addition to 90s Neon Soul, I've used music videos too. What I love about music videos, kind of similar to anime in such a way where it's like I can edit for and look to different kinds of colors and compositions, is the feeling and the music of something so, in a way, abstract, but yet so like concrete that I can just go ahead and act on it. But yes, music, I'd still, while still on this chain too, the other physical medium of music that I collect for myself is going to be vinyls. Now, granted, I don't use vinyls as heavily as, say, like some of these albums that I referenced, or as well as other artists that I reference, but I still like them for a couple different reasons. For example, this right here, I have Evangelion Finally, and I love this for a couple different reasons. Not only is the colorization really cool, but at the same time, like, I think of like what is the portrait and like how do they take it, and also like how do they take it in such a way to like make Rei look really flattering. So as we can see, we have her good side, and also just it's an upper torso shot and head shot, more so of like Rei herself. So I kind of think about like, how do I go about taking some really cool and interesting shots when it comes to like taking portraits of people that are, if not derived from like, say, vinyls or album covers, but like from different pools of media as well too. Now, a couple other things that I want to get into before talking about the practical application of things. There's a lot of other things that come into like my style that, in a way, like I can't sit still, and I like shooting a lot of different things and applying different things from like different sources elsewhere. Concept books have also been a really big one, and as we can see, Makoto Shinkai has been a really big influence in my work too. So what I like about this is that not only does it add more context to like what I've either read or watched, but I can see more of their whys behind the creative process and like why they do things. So that's helped me get a better sense of, and also see things in a different way when it comes to my own editing, like how can I improve. Additionally, I would say I'm not an architecture photographer, but I do like architecture. Part of it is because like I feel like when I'm inside an artistically designed building, I feel like I'm inside someone's head, which is like their own creative space just laid out in a physical form. But Jazz Kisa over here, I have a couple of their different volumes, and what I love about it is that, in a way, it reminds me of like still life. And also just like interior design or even architecture, and just I like shooting for those things. I feel like some of my photography at times doesn't necessarily need to require having a human element to it or like a physical human in it, but just more so like remnants or traces or like a sense of human presence included. So I like using this a lot to see like how warmth, color, tone, lighting within a confined space is perceived, and like how it's shot for. So I'll use this along with some other like reference material when it comes to architecture shots. I would also highly recommend looking into Trope Publishing Co. They have some really good photographers, as well as just like Your City books. Like I'd say Chicago was my first one. That was great. Tokyo was a really good one too, and among others. Now, I have talked a lot about so many different mediums that now I feel like it's really important to figure out like how do we go ahead and apply this as creatives to first find a sense of style and build on it. And these are some of the things that I've picked up along the way to get to where I am now. Granted, like I mentioned earlier, style is something that I find, at least for myself still, to be a work in progress, and something like an evolution of like what it is that I'm already applying. When it came to style very early on, when I started out in photography much more seriously, about like 5 years ago, is I looked to Instagram, YouTube, as well as like some really cool photographers and videographers early on to see for myself like how can I take some of their work, draw influence from it, and create it. Something that I did for myself, which was really hard to do at times, was like not buy some presets. Granted, it saved me a lot of money. At the same time, it caused me a lot of frustration because I figured like, how is it that I'm not quickly learning what it is that I need to do to get to that level of like editing. Granted, over time and a lot of YouTube videos later and a lot of trial and error when it comes to shooting stuff and also editing things, did I figure out that I don't need to necessarily rely on just a like one kind of photographer, YouTuber. Granted, there's a lot of other influences that go ahead and I can collect from and really culminate into like one kind of like, say, beginning of a sense of style. But what I'm trying to say is it just takes a lot of time to just build a sense of style for what it is. And I feel like even to this day that I can't really just sit in one place and just focus on editing in like one type of tone or one type of style, that because I'm traveling and on the go and just exploring different places, that I want to go ahead and do the same thing for my photography. I don't want to confine it within just one kind of like manner, but just open it up to a greater pool of like what it is that my potential can reach. But I'd say, yeah, go ahead and digest a lot of YouTube videos. Follow who you want to follow, but also like in a way cut out the fat in a way. There are other things that I had to like really cut out for myself to really focus on like what it is that I've enjoyed doing. Part of it is that like I love playing video games, but at the same time like I just don't have enough time on my hands now between balancing job and like editing photos and traveling to play a lot of video games. That isn't to say that I don't still draw influence from that, but I've just gone ahead and just like really put that on the back burner compared to like a couple other things within my life. But while I'm here talking about video games, something that I want to talk about is drawing. When it comes to building and finding style, I'd also say combine different pools of mediums from each other and go ahead and create something that's more unique and reflective of like what your interests are. So a really good example that I can go ahead and share is I like cats. They're really small, fluffy, and approachable, and when I was out in Zhoufeng, which is a city just like northeast of Taipei, Taiwan, I find that following cats into some of these different nooks and crannies outside of like the main tourist hub of Zhoufeng Old Street was really exciting and fun, because now I can go ahead and explore a different part of the map for you video game nerds out there. But at the same time, I can draw influence from the scenery and just think to myself like, man, this kind of reminds me of a video game that I played or am in the process of playing, and that being Silent Hill F or even Silent Hill 2. I just love the world building and the atmosphere and the lack of like in a way humans, and more so replaced by cats. And kind of building off that cat element too, a movie that I've absolutely enjoyed was A Whisker Away or Whisker Away. Can't recall the title entirely, but it is either of those two. You can find it on like Netflix as well as like some other anime streaming services. But at the same time, by combining the colorization and the world atmosphere of Silent Hill with an animated movie such as A Whisker Away, I was able to create something that's really unique and I'd say special to me. But yes, combining different formats and mediums and styles and colorizations as well as just elements from different sources, I think can also create in building style as well too. And as you can see, my brother came back home. But with this in mind too, I'd say when it comes to progressing as a creative and building something for yourself and your sense of style, I say another thing that helped me out a lot was exploring different genres and themes as well as concepts outside of just like what I normally shoot for. So because I shoot for either portraits or travel, there was a phase and sometimes a couple of phases that I go through here and there where I will shoot outside of those different mediums. Kind of like what I referenced before with the architecture. Now, I'm not an architecture photographer by any means, but I can definitely appreciate the composition, the framing, as well as just like lines as well as symmetry between different structures of like, say, this artistically designed building. And I'll throw up a couple of examples in the meantime as well too from different places that I've traveled along the way. But I'd say explore different areas, come back to your origins in a way, and just see how much more that you can go ahead and apply from different mediums and also just different genres within your current level of work. And I feel like that's not only allowed me to explore a different side of like my creative freedom and passion, but it's allowed me to just see things in a different manner. I'd say the last thing too when it comes to seeing things in a different manner, based off all the items that I showed you earlier, I showed you a lot of Makoto Shinkai, but at the same time I've showed the concept book, the movie, as well as the manga, and I've referenced the novel too. But when you have a piece of work or medium, explore the different, I'd say, verticals of it too, because it allows you a different perspective of seeing the same thing in a different way. And I felt like that's helped me a lot when it came to my work. Like there might be times where like I'd be shooting for a certain concept or theme, but because like I'm introduced to a different perspective of it from another medium, I feel like that's helped me gain another avenue of creativity to explore. But man, we have talked so much within this video about style, how to build it, and some of the ways that you go first on how to build style. Now, this is all to say that you can surround yourself by the things that you love, draw inspiration from it, but more importantly for you as a creative is to apply it into practice. Go out, explore, shoot a lot, do a lot of trial and error, because again, style is something that is progressive, it's an evolution, and it's just not something that like is really set in stone, because it ebbs and flows. But with all that in mind, I hope you guys really enjoyed the video for what it is. Again, if you have any questions, comments about anything that I talked about, I'd be happy to get into a further discussion within the comments below. If you liked the video, go ahead and drop a like. And I'd say that this video is a foundation for some of the other things that I want to talk about creatively, that being how I edit some of my photos from my recent travels, and also just for other concepts and themes later on in this channel. So with that, hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Catch you around.